Well, welcome everyone. Everybody cool enough? Hey Ben, glad you could make it. So how many of you are like feeling shock and awe? It's kind of mind-blowing times we're in. Anyone here from my last talk where we talked about learning how to become comfortable with being uncomfortable? How many of you are good at being comfortable being uncomfortable? The nature of this opportunity is really asking us to move out of our comfort zones in a big way, in ways that give us the opportunity to experience a greater depth of the opening of our heart than we've ever known before. And through that experience, then, we find ourselves recognizing the depth of our own power, beauty, and light. We are heading into a profoundly powerful, transformative July and first part of August with the 3 eclipses coming up. The lunar eclipse at the end of July is the longest eclipse of the entire 21st century. So it'll be in early Aquarius. Mars is already in Aquarius. Mars is retrograde now and in Aquarius. So he is actually acting as a counterpoint to all this Leo 9 energy. Venus is in Leo currently. The Sun will enter Leo on July 22nd, just previous to the eclipse. As a counterpoint to the balance between our own self-emergence, the light within us, that bright star shining, the Leonine aspect, versus our ability to connect with other members of our tribe with whom we become a constellation of lights. When you're with true members of your own tribe or family, you recognize that bright star within each other, and you become a constellation rather than just a singular star. That's the Aquarian opportunity. Not only is Mars in Aquarius retrograde, but he's also going what's called out of bounds on the 7th of July through the first part of October. Anybody familiar with what the planet out of bounds is? I think Len is. It's kind of a technical term, but it has direct consequence on our experience of our own energetic nature, especially with Mars. There's a certain boundary that the Sun sets. There's the Tropic of Cancer in Capricorn, 23.5 degrees north and south, within which the Sun moves in relationship to our Earth. He's bound within that particular zone. But occasionally a planet will move either above or below that zone that the Sun defines. And when a celestial does that, it's called out of bounds. The Sun, that solar zone that the Sun describes the dominant modality of our consciousness, our present accepted norm. When a planet goes out of bounds, he's like beyond that norm, he goes wild. And Mars is going out of bounds south of that norm. And when he goes out of bounds south of that norm, he explores himself in ways that go beyond the norm in a drive to self-realize his own uniqueness in Aquarius. So what this is saying is this is going to be a pretty wild July and August in terms of our really taking risks with our capacity to move beyond the norm and to explore new ways of self-realizing, because Mars is always about realizing yourself in ways that really make your heart sing. So let's take a closer look at that dynamic in July. The solar eclipse occurs on July 12th at almost 21 degrees of Cancer. That's at 7:48 p.m. Pacific time. And right within that zone, Mercury will be in Leo. Mercury enters Leo, has just entered Leo on the 28th, just a couple days ago. And Mercury also will be very unusually powerful because he remains in Leo all the way through September, through early September, September 6th. Now, Mercury normally only remains within one sign for about 3 weeks, so you can see how unusual this is. So adding to the Leonine aspect of the polarity between Mars and Aquarius and Leo, Mercury emphasizes that polarity. Now, Mercury is said to be in a sign that he has most difficulty with in Leo. So we may be challenged in the art of communication through this period of time, because many of us will be given an opportunity to really shine our light brightly. But Mercury is the capacity to really hear and speak, to connect with others in a way in which the energy flows between us. What is Leo like? Any Leos here? It's a commanding presence so bright that it can dominate the room. And Leo is connected with kings, queens, princes. So when the king or queen speaks, there's only one way to engage, that's to listen. Whereas Mercury is about the art of communicating back and forth. So you can see how when Mercury is in Leo, he or she might have a difficult time with the art of communication and really feeling heard. So the tendency when that occurs with Mercury in Leo is just to get louder. Because you sense that the messages are coming across. So the person who's really captured by the Mercury in Leo quality will become like a roaring lion. And it's already started a couple days ago. So have any of you noticed that your ability to communicate clearly with a roaring lion in the room has been challenged? But it's beautiful because it does emphasize the polarity to the Mars in retrograde in Aquarius, and really taking the stage. And when you have the opportunity to be bold and bright, to really claim that place, and communicate all of you as a brilliant and bright star. It's just knowing that the more advanced Leonine phase is being able to be aware that others also have a bright star within them, and need to be encouraged to take the stage also and given their time in the spotlight. So if you have that awareness within you, you can really be bold and not be concerned about overwhelming others with the brightness of your own light. So we have what adds to this unusual July and into August is that in late July, with Mars continuing to remain retrograde, then Mercury also goes retrograde on the 25th of July, the evening of the 25th. And that's 2 days before the massive lunar eclipse on the 27th, which we won't be able to see here. It'll be exact at 1:20 p.m. on Friday the 27th on the West Coast. And the entire process of the lunar eclipse will actually take 4 hours to complete. So this isn't like a solar eclipse, which is just merely minutes long. So that whole midday area will be the opportunity to really experience the blossoming of all that's been building since the solar eclipse on July 12th in Cancer. So it's an interesting contrast, because the solar eclipse in Cancer on the 12th is very deeply personal. It's how you experience belongingness within the closest and most intimate circle of your own family, where you emotionally belong. So we might find that during that time because eclipses always trigger turning points of a fated quality, that we really become aware of who really belongs to our intimate family. And over that next 2 weeks, leading into the lunar eclipse on the 27th, then we become aware of who belongs to our global family, our friendship circle, our tribe, our soul family. So it's a beautiful contrast between those two, building upon the eclipse, the turning point that occurs at or around that time, and then has that foundation, then we become aware of the foundation that we personally rest upon emotionally.
Full moon Aquarius.
Yeah, so by the time of the full moon, the lunar eclipse, then we have that emotional reference point that allows us to really identify who is a truly part of our family, a member of our tribe. But between the eclipses, and this is unusual because we have a solar eclipse, a lunar eclipse, and then another solar eclipse in early August. So this is a threefold eclipse because of the massive nature of the lunar eclipse in the center, being so aligned with the Earth. We have two solar eclipses that bracket it. They're partial eclipses. So usually it's just a 2-week period between eclipses that is fated, that is powerfully transformative, and brings us to a certain point of crisis and a turning point where you feel like you've reached a point of no return. And then a deeper truth has emerged that makes it clear that you cannot any longer hold on to the past, and it's time to take your power and move forward with courage. So I'd be particularly conscious of what unfolds in those 2 weeks between July 12th, leading up to the lunar eclipse on the 27th. And then, if that weren't enough, then we have another 2-week destiny phase, all the way up to August 11th, with the second solar eclipse at almost 19 degrees of Leo, creating a punctuation mark for that Leonine phase of Mercury being retrograde through much of August, and then going direct in Leo on the Mercury goes direct on the 19th of August, and won't leave the shadow until the very 1st of September. So from what I'm sharing with you now, you may all sense that July and August are profoundly powerful, fated, turning points, not just for us personally, but for the globe, for the whole entire world at large. And with this many celestials, especially the personal ones, Mars and Mercury being retrograde, it's a good idea to become teachable to the moment and not front load the present moment with ideas of what needs to happen in your life, but be present for what the universe around you, the people who show up around you, have to teach you. Because the beauty of a retrograde is you go to school. You become very teachable and open to new ways of being with yourself and others around you. In Leo, you may surprise yourself with Mercury going retrograde in Leo at the lion that wants to roar within you, and the opportunities you have to shine that light brightly and communicate big and bold. So don't be surprised at surprising others. If you're normally quiet and shy, and you're just like this lioness or a lion just suddenly surprises others around you and roars, you're taking the opportunity to find your voice. Mercury is always about finding your voice, the voice within you that has this drive to communicate and share of your own beingness with others around you. Do you have a question?
How will the Lion's Gate on August 8th play into all this?
Let's see, I'm glad you mentioned that. What Robert here is talking about, the Lion's Gate, is one of the cross-quarter points. It's a midway point between the summer solstice and the fall equinox. And when the sun reaches 15 degrees Leo, the midpoint between those two is said to be the Lion's Gate. And the Lion's Gate actually occurs on the 7th of August this year. It's usually occurs. It's usually celebrated on the 8th, but it's actually technically on the 7th of August. The sun being in his own sign, it is the peak of the solar power for the lion within you to shine brightly. And Mercury will remain retrograde during that period of time through mid-August, still in Leo. And Mars will be at the very beginning of Aquarius, not in aspect by degree, but by sign opposite. So this Lionsgate with Mercury retrograde in Leo is an opportunity for us to deepen our awareness of how we can communicate our own solar fire in a way that doesn't quench the fire of others around us. Because Mercury in Leo can be, like I said earlier, the biggest, loudest voice in the room, in a way in which you become the star of the show, but you realize that everyone else has gone quiet, and that their fire has been undermined or diminished by the overwhelming presence of your own light. So this is an excellent time to be aware of how not to compromise your own brilliance, but also do so in a way that encourages the brilliance of others to shine as well. Karaoke comes to mind for some reason. You know how when you go to karaoke, you know you're not going to see the big star, right? You know, you do your thing, you get big and bold and bright, and then you get set down off the stage, and you make lots of room for others to do the same. And you encourage them to come up, even if they're shy, and sing their song, you know, or share their poem. That's the retrograde aspect of the Lionsgate this year, so that we share our light in a way which encourages others to do so as well. And then that leads into the Aquarian, this polar opposite, the Aquarian aspect of Mars in Aquarius, where you start feeling the brilliance of the constellation of people in the room, all shining their light brightly, and creating a bigger pattern, a constellation of lights that expands your own awareness. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay. So if that weren't enough, then on the day before the solar eclipse, Mars also combines with the dark moon Lilith.
Which solar eclipse?
Thank you for saying that. The August 11th solar eclipse. Dark moon Lilith has been in Capricorn for the last 8 or 9 months, really challenging us to recognize the depth of our own personal authority and integrity, and not feel that we've been eclipsed, and by the lack of recognition we received from the dominant social culture, but in terms of where we stand within this culture. So many of us may have gone through a personal crisis of feeling that your life is worthy of making a contribution to the greater whole, and which has driven each of us into an exploration of what true integrity requires in making our contribution to others and improving the quality of the society and the world around us in a way that makes our own heart sing and is in alignment with our own integrity. Anyone have a crisis with that for the last few months? Yeah. The black moon is always where you feel a black hole inside of you that needs to be explored and excavated for the opportunity presented to fill that void or that darkness within us with the light of our own being. So when Lilith changes sign into Aquarius on the 6th of August, and Mars being retrograde still, just at the very beginning of August, right before the August 11th solar eclipse, Mars conjuncts Lilith, emphasizing the need for us to really make clear who is a part of our tribe and who isn't. in that our own individual genius is something we embrace and recognize, regardless of how others receive it or embrace it or even understand it. Because the whole Lilith and Aquarius phase following, in the 9 months following, would suggest that we all have the opportunity to embrace the genius we are, even if we're far ahead of others around us, knowing that we're being given an opportunity to set the pace or tone for the future, the next wave of consciousness to unfold, that may be ahead of others to the point where they don't comprehend basically what you have to offer, but you offer it anyway. You plant the seed. Aquarians can plant seeds in ways that others may not even comprehend or understand, but then will sprout and unfold many years, months, or even many years later. So it's important, if you're given a unique opportunity to offer your genius, not to be invested in the response you receive from others. Of course, we make every effort we can to communicate in a way that is understandable to others. But there are times when you just need to go with your genius, make your contribution, and then let go. Knowing that your job was done. Your job was just to plant the seed and let it go. Because at some future point, it will be watered. So that whole 9-month period following will be giving us that opportunity to really embrace our genius without fearing the judgment or lack of understanding of others around us. So, as I mentioned earlier, the period between eclipses always appears to precipitate or catalyze what seem to be fated events that trigger turning points that are profound in their nature, that make it very clear that you cannot any longer compromise who you are in relationship to past relationships or ways of being. And during this period of time, or just preceding the first solar eclipse on July 12th, we have Mercury in Leo forming what's called a yod, or finger of God, or finger of destiny, to Neptune and Pluto. And because Mercury is going retrograde then, later in July, this will create a threefold yod through July, and then actually threefold yod, that's correct. And then the second week of August and the third week of August, or the final week of August. So this is a triple yod, and Mercury, as I said earlier, usually moves very quickly. So if this were forming a yod, it would only last for maybe 3-4 days or up to a week. But because it spans all the way, because Mercury goes retrograde and creates this triple yod, this is really emphasizing Mercury in Leo as a teaching. Everything I said earlier about Mercury in Leo being big, bold, and bright, and finding the lion or lioness within you, is a destined turning point for each of us that sets the tone for what is to follow later in the year. And the first yod, Mercury forms the first yod to Neptune and Pluto from right on the day of the July 12th solar eclipse. Mercury in conjunction Neptune, and then spans 3-4 days to the 16th with Mercury in conjunct Pluto. Now those are the exact days of the inconjunct. You can take 3-4 days on either side of that whole period of time. You'll have what appear to be contracts, soul contracts, show up where you meet people who draw that Leo, that lioness or lion out of you. Because sometimes, you have to be pushed a little bit before the lion or lioness finds their courage to roar. And so be thankful for any Heyoka teacher who shows up at that time.
What degree is that?
Let's see. It's about 16 to 20 degrees of Leo. So the just past the midpoint of Leo. So like I said, you can take 3 days to a week either side of that because of the orb involved. And then this particular yod, so I pay very particular attention who and what shows up as an opportunity during that first yod, because that gives you the idea of the opportunity, because it will come back again as an opportunity to deepen your awareness. And this one is a much longer yod because of the retrograde. Mercury then in conjunct Pluto on Saturday the 4th of August, and then we'll take almost all the following week to the 9th of August to in conjunct Neptune. And what adds to that is the Sun will also be in that Leo 9 sector of the yod, in conjuncting Neptune on the 8th of August, and then direct in conjuncting Pluto on the day of the August 11th solar eclipse, the final punctuation mark to this transformational journey that really begins July 12th with the first solar eclipse in earnest. So if it was just the eclipses, this would be mind-blowing, right? But to have this particular yod with Mercury going retrograde also repeating 3 times, which is associated with fated contracts, soul contracts, being awakened within us and each other. This is quite mind-blowing for us, and to awaken to that bright star within us. Any questions at this point or comments? Do you have anything to add about yods, Glenn?
I call them the fingers of God.
Yeah.
They're aha moments that just usually blast you out of some static situation that you're in.
Yeah. And that aha is so big that you can't ignore it any longer. You've got to move forward.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, okay.
With the idea of there being 3 of them. I always, with the retrograde process, I always like the idea that with the first one, we tend to bite off more than we can chew. And the second one, we realize it and do some adjusting. And then the third time it happens, it has the best effect.
You've digested it, and it starts really giving you the reward of the of the entire process. Yeah, the third one.
Not too hot, not too cold.
Yeah. Yeah, the third one, you reap all the rewards of the entire process, right? Exactly. Thanks for that. Go ahead.
What's the significance of the yod in the natal chart?
Excuse me?
What's the significance of the yod in the natal chart?
If you have a yod in your natal chart, it just signifies to me a contract, a soul contract.
Do you have one with somebody, or is that?
Yeah, you have a soul contract to meet someone or have a certain situation unfold that will open the portal or door to the awareness of a higher or greater intelligence working through you. Because the yod, if you see it in a chart, looks like a funnel, and the 2 sextile planets funnel through the third planet as the funnel. So depending on the nature of that funnel planet or celestial, then that soul contract will then become apparent to you by transit, usually. Usually a transit is what triggers it, especially if it's an outer planet. Then you have a whole period of your life. It seems like some greater power has taken over your life and it just moves you around. It's grabbed you by the scruff of the neck, and it's just your time to surrender to this greater destiny unfolding by becoming aware of a greater intelligence than your own moving through your life. It's a little smarter than you, a little more perspective. Say, okay, I got it. You know, you guys know what you're doing. I'm just surrendering, listening. But it's particularly strong during the activation of the yod. So, with this threefold yod through the next couple of months, for everyone, it's just everyone's going to be feeling it. That destiny is at play, and there are greater forces than we can naturally be aware of moving in the world and in our own lives, that it's like, wow, what an awakening, time of awakening for all of us to learn how to listen at a much deeper level to this greater intelligence and how it moves and changes and transforms what we thought were immovable blockages and hindrances in our life. It's like the Red Sea parts and you just wave at the fish as you go by. So also throughout this entire period in the background, we have that Jupiter-Neptune trine remaining throughout the summer, which, as I've mentioned before, offers us opportunity to really experience magic in our life, the depth and transformative power of true passion that opens the door to the higher power, a transcendent love that only there's a deeper passion within our lives in connection to a life goal or another, especially in personal relationships, can reveal the deeper mysteries of this greater love that's pouring out from the source. Go ahead.
What sign is Neptune in?
Neptune's been in Pisces since 2011, 2012. And Jupiter, as you may know, has been in Scorpio all year. So that's trine by nature. And this whole Neptune phase starting in 2011 is very significant, because Neptune only finds herself in her own, I'm calling her her because I relate to Neptune as the goddess, finds herself only in her own sign every 165 years. So until Neptune remains in Pisces through, when is it, 2022? 2025? Okay. So we still have another 7 years of the goddess just radiating that, pouring out that love from the source as an opportunity for true spiritual awakening. And Jupiter trining her this year is, she's definitely getting our attention, particularly through powerful, passionate encounters with others that awaken our Kundalini. So if you draw a goddess into your world that awakens your Kundalini, brother, it's right on track. So. Be willing to be surprised if you don't have one already. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, you said Mercury is retrograde in Leo.
Yes.
Right. What happens if there is both Saturn and Mars in the birth chart is in Leo, and Mercury is transiting them?
So you have Mars and Saturn and Leo in your birth chart?
Yes, they're both, and Pluto too. So then Mercury is going on all three of them.
So you have Mars, Saturn, and Pluto.
Yes, in Leo.
Were you born in 1948?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a particularly powerful year of that Mars, Saturn, Pluto conjunction. The reason I know that is I had a girlfriend once with that combination. It was intense.
So this is powerful.
So yeah, and not only that, this will be the first taste. This couple months here, Mercury going back and forth over that combination of the celestial of Varuna, the newly discovered celestial of Varuna, just having entered Leo over the next 25 years, approaching that Mars, Saturn, and Pluto of yours over this 25-year period of you really coming into your full brilliance as the lion who roars. And then depending on what house that was in, that would add further information to that.
So that lasts actually until like 95 years old, all of this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're gonna go out with a bang, brother.
So one of the reasons why I'm asking is you said it's powerful like that is that I experienced when a Saturn is go over these three planets every 30 years or something. It's been very challenging,
Mm-hmm.
and the first time especially. So I.
When Saturn was in Leo, you're saying transiting?
Yeah, Saturn is going over my Saturn and Mars.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Well, you know, with that combination,
Yes.
Saturn, any Saturn return, even if you don't have other planets around it, is always challenging. But you know, then you have Mars and Pluto there with it. And it's like whoa, through the roof. But that was a few years ago, so right?
Yeah, many years ago.
Yeah. But if this were my chart, I'd be asking an astrologer, if you're not already one, you know, which day that the Mercury is actually sitting on your Mars, Saturn, or Pluto, to know, to be prepared for who and what shows up on that day as an opportunity, especially because of the threefold transit or movement across those three celestials. And this would be an excellent time for you to know, to have a calendar and have those dates, you know, pegged down. Because I try not to lean too much into what might happen on a day like that. I just understand the nature of the opportunity, and then I'm open to how it manifests and how the universe shows me or gives me an opportunity to dive deep into that quality of being. You know.
So it's more like precious opportunities than challenges.
Yeah, opportunities to but with Mars and Pluto and Saturn, it may be initially experienced as a challenge that requires you to really take your power. You know, so whatever adversary you might draw to you, thank them, because they're demanding that you take your power, or if you don't take your power, they'll roll over you. And that's whenever Pluto's involved, that's usually what's going on. You know, it's like you take your power or die. You're still standing, brother, so you must be doing good.
Most likely be in a retreat meditating at that time. So.
Well, no, that's the time for you to come out and be brilliant, be highly visible.
Well,
yeah.
But it's already planned, but anyhow, so but I see. But thank you for the comments.
Yeah. But it's a threefold pass, so it doesn't mean that, you know, once the first pass is over, it's done. But Glenn's an astrologer, I'm an astrologer, there might be other astrologers in the room. Just, you know, I would be looking to have those dates, you know, to know exactly which days Mercury is going to be sitting on those three of your celestials, okay? Any other questions? Comments? Go ahead.
Do you have any thoughts if the eclipse is landing on my ascendant, or my Mars is in Aquarius, if there would be some significance in that?
So, what degree is your Mars?
I don't remember.
Well, here again, it's important to know whether Mars actually reaches your Mars, or whether
I looked at it. It
Yeah,
does.
it
At
does.
some point
Okay.
I would watch.
So you have Mars in early Aquarius then, yeah. Well, usually, does anyone else have Mars or anything else in Aquarius that you know of? Okay, Mars is usually a 2-year cycle. So whenever you have a Mars return, that starts a new 2-year cycle of activity. But in your case, it's a threefold return. So the first pass will give you an energetic view of this whole new cycle opening up. You may proceed into that new cycle and then realize that you need further information. You need to actually glean more of what you've experienced and understood from the past 2-year cycle to finish it up, complete it. Because Mars then goes back over your ascendant into the 12th house and then finally makes its third pass, and then you're really ready to move forward. But usually, you know, I don't know, has your energy level been up and down? Yeah. Because usually the month or two before the Mars return is the lowest energy phase of the 2-year cycle. You're basically exhausted. So it's really important that you not push it during that period of time. Here again, you should look at the dates of Mars actually going into your first house, and then when going retrograde and then going back into the 12th. Because when it's back in the 12th, or before it moves across your ascendant, you should really be taking it easy and not trying to push forward. Here again, astrology is all about cycles. One of the greatest advantages of knowing the cycle is knowing when to actually anchor and move forward. Yeah. But if your energy level is just like up and down and you're not feeling normal, get up and go, your get up and go's got up and went, there's nothing wrong here. It's a natural time to be in retreat. Okay. So, since we're talking about Leo, it really won't be fully activated until the Sun enters Leo on July 22nd. But Mercury and Venus being in Leo now, and Mercury remaining in Leo until early September. Leo is associated with the fifth house in astrology. Anybody studying astrology here? Fifth house is Leo. Leo and the fifth house can be synonymous. And what are one of the key words for the fifth house, Gleb?
Creativity, play, children.
What's that?
Creativity, play, children.
Yeah, uh-huh. And also love affairs, right?
Love affairs, yeah.
Right.
Romance.
So why that because Leo's about that bright star inside of you, igniting. How would a love affair be connected with that?
Attracts positivity.
Yeah, once you get into the true nature of Leo, and then you look at the keywords, you can see, oh, that's how they got that. So how would a love affair be connected with that bright star within you?
Expressing yourself. It's like ultimate creativity. It's kind of.
Yeah. Don't you feel like if someone really like just falls head and heels over head over heels in love with you, don't you feel like you're the brightest star in the room, right? You see how that really brings out that bright star in you? Now you can see why Leo is associated with love affairs. Okay? So we can fall in love with a particular quality of being within ourselves or within someone else. A child will do that too. That unconditional love they have, children are associated with fifth house. They just run up to you and give you a big hug. I'm so glad to see you. Your dog could do that. Your cat won't, but your dog can. So, with this huge Leo emphasis, don't be surprised if you have that someone come into your life where you feel that bright star ignite within you, and that you are the only light in the room, that you are just the brightest light in the universe. So if you have any hesitation about being loved or loving, this is a good time to get over it. Because we all may have opportunities to really embrace that brilliance within ourselves by reflection of a possible love affair, or children, or a new pet that just lights our entire universe up in a way that is really beautiful and reaffirms and ignites that solar fire within us in a way in which we can no longer deny the brilliance of our own being. The only time we get into trouble is we feel like the other person's the source of that light and we get attached, or get greedy. But it's just the catalyst through which we become aware of the brilliance of our own being and our capacity to love and to be loved and to be a bright light in the life of another. So all of you have the opportunity to jump into the unknown and become more accessible to another, or to share that brilliance with. Okay? some good news. Yeah.
One word of caution.
There's always a word of caution, right?
The Sun-Mars opposition
Right.
coming in the middle of the Mars
Uh-huh.
retrograde.
Mm-hmm.
I just learned something the other day too, which this year Mars is going to be closer to the Earth than it has been since 2003.
Correct.
And from 2003, the last time it was 1942.
Right.
So
Mhm.
people know the history of 1942 and 2003,
Mm-hmm.
2018.
Yeah.
It's a little scary
Yeah.
that way.
It's called a peri-opposition, which means that Mars is at perihelion, or very close to it, at opposition to the Sun from their perspective. Right.
The part that I want to caution people on is with the Sun opposite Mars, there's a tendency to project imagery onto other people and go, oh, I need that, I need that.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're seeing is they're seeing themselves
Right.
rather than owning it themselves. They're finding it in another person
Yeah.
with the Sun-Mars opposition. So,
Right. And that's always true, but it's being even emphasized now with Mars opposite the Sun.
Yes.
That we're really going to get that
Exactly.
message. Yeah. Because Mars in Aquarius, the projection, the opposite to Leo, is that we are concerned about how we connect to the community, or how well we may be received by the community, if we are ignited in our solar fire and shine it really brightly. Will we create ripples in the community of friends or soul tribe that we naturally harmonize with if we stand out too brightly amongst them? So that's the counterbalance right there. That's the Aquarius that you're talking about. So you may fall in love with someone that your community doesn't accept. And so what do you do then? That's the Mars and Aquarius reflection, you know, of that counterbalance. And just really claiming the right to shine brightly in whatever way you choose. I mean, some of you may even come out of the closet. Who knows? I mean. And it doesn't have to be in a sexual way. I'm talking about just your unique self just showing up in ways that surprise other people around you. It says, wow, I had no idea, you know, that you had that talent, ability, or insight. You know, you're just shocking me awake and making me aware of a greater possibility to move beyond my comfort zone and explore a more expanded state of being, you know, that's connected with the heart. Yeah, 2003. The opposition occurred in August also. In August also, and the Iraq War had already started. But because Mars remains at his brightest through this whole period of the end of July, it's kind of the peak point of that Martian energy. But because it was in Aquarius, it's more, it's less personal than it normally would be. The only thing that would make it more personal is that Mars is going out of bounds south. So what comes to mind is Breitbart. Anybody familiar with Breitbart?
Yeah.
You know, these off the radar eclectic groups, Aquarius, that form their own community way of thinking and then try to impose that radical way of thinking on a larger sphere of people in order to provoke a revolution in the way in which we relate to one another as a society. So some of that may also serve us. Let's see. So the Sun-Mars opposition occurs the day before this massive lunar eclipse, on the 27th, Mars opposes the Sun from the Earth's point of view. Mars never opposes the Sun by his own nature. It's only from the Earth's point of view. On the night of the 26th, night of the leading into the lunar eclipse. Yeah, that whole period of time, on the 25th of July, Mercury is at a dead standstill, going retrograde. The 26th, the Sun opposes Mars from the Earth's point of view. And then on the 27th, we have the massive lunar eclipse in Aquarius during the afternoon. So that whole period of time is really powerful. And when I mention a particular date, it's not just that day. It's at least 3-4 days before and after. So that whole third week of July is really building into the lunar eclipse will be pretty awesome. And Venus enters the sign of Virgo on the 9th of July and remains in Virgo through July into the first week of August. And Venus by nature is experienced on a beautiful personal level, but she's unusually powerful for the next 6 or 7 years because Uranus, having entered Taurus, is looking to her as his guide. So whenever Venus changes sign now, she's more powerful than usual. And Venus entering Virgo, I mentioned earlier that Mercury is in his fall or in his most difficult sign in Leo. When Venus is in Virgo, she's also what's classically called her fall. She's most challenged in the sign of Virgo. So the Uranian revolution with Venus in Virgo then would be asking us how we can put what we feel is our contribution to others into a useful form. So Virgo is the sign of apprenticeship. And when we are an apprentice to someone or something, we're not acknowledged and appreciated for our own beauty. We're appreciated for what we are able to accomplish and master in that apprenticeship. So you can see how Venus would have a difficult time in Virgo, because she's about sharing appreciation, contact, and love. In Virgo, she's challenged to make herself useful. This is like the old the 50s idea of the housewife with the apron just being acknowledged for washing the dishes, making dinner. That's Virgo. That would be Venus in Virgo. The opportunity with Venus in Virgo is to master your own self-appreciation, regardless of how others appreciate you, knowing that you are a person of value, Venus, and you have an internal beauty that transcends how others perceive you, and how whether you make yourself useful to them or not. Because whenever a planet's in its fall, or celestial's in its fall, even though it's most challenged, it's offered the opportunity for complete and total mastery. Because if you can master that quality of being under its most difficult conditions, then you can fly on all the other signs with it, with great personal integrity. Okay? And then she enters her own sign on the 6th of August, right in the middle of that Yod period. So July is going to be remarkable, not just for us in our own personal lives, but in terms of how the planet is offered an opportunity to recognize turning points that are needed in a conscious and constructive way that will open up the opportunity for us to cooperate and work together and form true community and understanding amongst ourselves because of the Aquarian-Leo opposition, and open the door to recognizing the gift and beauty we all need to share with one another in a brilliant way. So if you have personal opportunities to do so with others in your life during this period of time, I really suggest that you lose your hesitation to get involved and become comfortable being uncomfortable and move beyond your comfort zone and allow your light to shine. And this is particularly, it's a beautiful time for all this to happen because, especially here in Mount Shasta, this is a time for us, we all come out of our caves and naturally want to become more involved with the community and share our light with others. So, good timing. Any comments, questions? Glenn, do you have anything else to add?
Just this whole time from mid-April to end of October, the whole Mars retrograde thing is squaring Uranus.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Aquarius part of the Earth is Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only landmass when you lay the zodiac over the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And when the volcano started going off, I was like, oh
Yeah.
shoot, missed that one. Missed that. But we come toward the end of July, I suspect it's going to stir up again over there. So.
Yeah, this was mentioned before in other talks, but I'm glad you brought it up because this is a very unusual summer because of that. Mars squaring Uranus. Mars is in Aquarius. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. So Mars is squaring his own guide and reminding Uranus in the sign of his fall of what it's like to be electric and future-oriented. Because Uranus in Taurus is now grounded in the earth, the awakening of the nature spirits in the nature kingdom, in a way in which we all feel like people in Hawaii must be feeling now, with the ground that they thought was solid isn't as solid as they thought. So this is like an earthquake zone for the whole next 2 months, especially with Mars squaring Uranus, where we just may not be able to find our footing and anchor and be ready to move with the next tremor of the earth that reveals to us where true stability might lie. So does anybody feel like they're kind of on shaky ground right now? They can't quite find their balance and anchor? Well, it's appropriate to be quick on your feet right now and be willing to move and change and simplify your lives in a way that allows you to move with the sudden shifts and changes that are occurring with Mars squaring Uranus, particularly in Aquarius. Because Mars square Uranus is like lightning medicine. You can strike out of the blue. And suddenly the entire scene or situation is changed in ways that you could not have normally imagined. And if you're quick on your feet, you can move with the change and realize its opportunity. I've got Mars square Uranus in my chart, so I know a lot about that one, about lightning striking.
Just keep dancing. Stay in dance mode.
Right. Stay light on your feet. Be willing to change your mind or direction at any moment without taking it personally. Don't take anything personally through these next 2 months because some people may be really losing it a little bit, particularly those who are uncomfortable being uncomfortable.
Is Jupiter turning direct though?
And Jupiter is going direct, so we have a few astrologers here that are reminding me of things that are important. That's good.
What is the hope? What's the hope, wasn't it?
Yeah, Jupiter turns direct on the 10th of July, but it doesn't suddenly just go forward. It's just a slow movement forward. So that second week of July, we'll feel the gradual deepening of the passion and power of Jupiter and Scorpio, really anchoring the Kundalini fire and its awakening. through opening the door to become more conscious of how he's been working deep below the level of our consciousness to claim our power and our passion more fully and consciously. And he'll be going into Sagittarius, his own sign. That'll be in November, second week of November. So this is the beginning of the launch pad, really beginning to warm up a lot as Jupiter goes direct, applying toward or rushing through Scorpio to reach his own sign in November. Shock and awe, brothers and sisters. Just don't be surprised at who and what shows up to rearrange your world and give you the opportunity to explore entirely new ways of being and expressing yourself with boldness and courage. Go ahead.
Could we possibly start experiencing some of that presently, like in small increments?
Some of what?
Running into people and situations that are starting to represent that like shift in being.
Yeah, because Mars has been squaring Uranus for quite some time already, and this is just an ongoing process. Mars entered the shadow in mid-May, so this has been really getting underway since mid-May, and won't complete until later in the year. What, do you have something in the oven that's been brewing?
Oh, there's been characters that have showed up and presented interesting situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, brothers and sisters, unless there's any other comments or questions, I think there's one more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have a stellium in Scorpio, my Uranus, my Mars, my Sun, and my Mercury are all conjunct. And Jupiter is going through there right now. I think it's going to retrograde on my Mars. And then you said that Mars is squaring the Sun right now, correct?
Mars is squaring Uranus.
Mars is squaring Uranus. So if all my stuff was conjunct, then Mars is kind of squaring, or Mars is kind of squaring my...
It depends on the degree, because Mars went retrograde at about 9 degrees of Aquarius. And it may not have reached the square point yet to some of your Scorpio planets. And whenever anyone asks about a certain signature in their chart, it really needs to be looked at in terms of how it fits into the entire chart. But with Jupiter there activating your Scorpio stellium, this is a 12-year cycle. Okay, so you can go back 12 years. That would be 2006. And ask yourself what happened during that period of time to awaken your Kundalini. The Scorpio by nature is connected with the serpent fire, the awakening of the Kundalini within you through power and passion, which can be a challenge of some kind, a life and death challenge. Sometimes that's the way we call in a catalyst to awaken us. And with Jupiter, it's like bigger and bolder and more powerful than usual. Have you had those kinds of challenges this year?
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
It's been interesting.
But with Jupiter there saying you are protected if you take your power.
Yeah.
And you can't imagine the great benefit that occurs in your life when you have the courage to really stay with your own integrity, take your power, hold your ground, and become an immovable force for transformation in the lives of others. Yeah. But in order to fully address your question, I'd have to look at your whole chart. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay.